Welcome everyone to the City Council meeting. Mayor Bob Odenkirk is presiding. Tuesday, September 15th at 6:30. Invocation by Father Chris Rhodes from St. Mary's Magdalene. And after that, he'll lead us in the pledge to the flag. Father.
Let us gather our thoughts in prayer this evening. Almighty God, you are so generous in all of the gifts you bestow upon us, and we are grateful for all that you continue to do for us each day, and for the many favors that you grant us. We come together in your name and ask your enlightenment and guidance upon our city council, our city manager, city staff, and our mayor. Bring them your enlightenment and guidance so that all their decisions may begin with your inspiration. This evening, in a special way, we remember those who are particularly vulnerable during this crisis of COVID-19. We pray for their safety and for their protection. And for all who experience fear or anxiety, we pray for peace of mind and of spirit. For all of our brothers and sisters in Joliet, we pray for their care and for their well-being. May all of us be a sign of hope, comfort, and love for all. We pray to you, our living and true God, now and forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mayor Odenkirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris. Councilman Lyman.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Reardon. Here. Councilman Turk.
Here.
Krista, before we start, there's a limit, 25 people are allowed inside the room. So I know that's not our rule, that's from the governor. So let's do a quick count. We have 9 on the council. Jim, you're 10, Sabrina 11, Krista 12, Tony 13, Pauline 14. That would leave room for 11 people. I know we have city staff that's not in the room, that's gonna come in to speak. So if you wanna speak, you can come in later in the meeting, but we're gonna have to clear people out of the room for now.
We are playing this in outside.
We'll bring you guys in. I appreciate it.
So you'll be able to watch the meeting out by the elevators and also right outside this room as well.
And then they'll be allowed a chance to speak if they want. Thank you.
First on the agenda this evening is a presentation, comprehensive annual financial report of Dave Meyer with former Rogers Brand and Broussard.
Good evening. I'm going to lower my mask here. Thanks for having me out. I'm here to discuss the audit for the year ended December 31st, 2019. I realize it's been quite a while ago. We had some delays in getting the audit done due to the virus. We were able to complete our procedures, and just so you're aware, all of the required filings have been made. You file with the state, you file a report with the federal government. Those all been taken care of, and then you also file with the Government Finance Officers Association. So all your filings are in for 2019. One of the things that we do is we take a look at your financial information, and we wouldn't be able to do our procedures without the assistance of your staff. And so Jim Gadotti and Christine Chinderly, our 2 main contacts, did a fabulous job of providing providing us with all the information we need to perform our audit. There's a lot of documents that we need to look at, a lot of disclosures need to be made in the financial statements, so they take their roles very seriously. They're very professional. They provide us, again, with everything we need. So I want to put a special thanks out to Jim and Christine for everything they did to help us through the audit. I won't spend too much time going through each page and each number. I'll try to keep it down to maybe hour and a half or so, but I'm kidding, of course. The comprehensive annual financial report looks a lot like last year. There's 167 pages. I'm just going to touch briefly on a few. There's in the beginning of the book, there's what's called introductory section, and one of the pages I wanted to point out is Roman numeral 11, XI. It's what's called the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting, and that was awarded to you for the 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And so what that signifies is that your Comprehensive Annual Financial Report met all of the reporting guidelines. It's the highest level that you can report at, and so you're doing a fabulous job of reporting your financial information. Right after that's what's called the Independent Auditor's Report. It takes us 3 pages to say that we're giving you a clean opinion or an unmodified opinion on your financial statements, which is good. That's what you want. So we're able to perform our procedures and state that your financial statements state everything fairly in all material respects. After that is what's called management's discussion and analysis. I'm not going to spend time going through it, but basically it's a 2-year comparison on pages 4 through 15, comparing 2018 with 2019. And then right after that starts the financial statements, and I'm going to take just a quick look at a couple of the statements. On page 22, you'll see your general fund, and you ended the year with a fund balance in your general fund of $46.9 million, which is about a 3-month reserve of fund balance. And so that you're kind of in that range where we like to see governments be, is in that 3 to 6 month reserve range in your general fund balance. So you're right there. You did have a deficit for the year, and that's a result basically of you transferring money from the general fund to the capital improvements fund of about $6.5 million, so that you can continue with some capital projects. A few pages later on, you'll see the water and sewer fund. That's on page 26. They ended the year with a net change, a positive net change in net position of $7.1 million. So $7.1 million to the good for the water fund. And then your pension funds that they're shown on page 30, and this is actually the police pension fund and the fire pension fund. When you combine and you take a look at their return on investment for the year, they had about a 17.5% return on investment. So a good year of investing for the police and fire pension funds. After the financial statements, there's what's called the notes to the financial statements. All kinds of disclosures here regarding your significant accounting policies, taxes, cash and investments, debt, pension fund disclosures, etc. It goes on for 51 pages, and I'm not going to spend time reading any of those to you, but just so you know they're here, and these are all required disclosures in keeping with governmental accounting standards. After the notes to the financial statements, I'll just point out a couple of quick pages. On page 97 and 98, there's a budget to actual presentation for the general fund. So you've got your what you passed as your original budget, those amounts are here, what the final budget was after any budget amendments, and then also your actual results for the year, which this is more detailed than what was on page 22 when we looked at the general fund. And then even greater detail is on pages 102 through 110, where you can see the expenditures by department. along with those budget numbers and what actually ended up happening on a budget, on a GAAP basis. In the back of the book, again, you can look at this at your leisure. There's what's called a statistical section, and this is where there's information generally for 10 years. So you can go back and see what happened 10 years ago, what happened in the most current year, do some comparisons. I did point out during the Finance Committee meeting that your tax rate was lower again this year, and your equalized assessed value had an increase again for the 5th consecutive year. So there was several years of downward trending for the equalized assessed value, and now the property values are back on the rise for 5 years in a row. That's all I had to say about the comprehensive annual financial report. And again, everything got filed with the correct filing agencies. And is there anyone that has any questions about the report you see or what we do during an audit? I'd be happy to field any questions you have at this point.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed that you didn't go page by page, line by line. I was looking forward to that. This reminds me of my old colleague, Councilman Girl. This used to get his juices flowing, these types of presentations. No, it's a good report. Thank you.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you, too.
There are no appointments this evening, so next is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as written with the following change? Vote separately on Council Memo 506-20, which is credit building permit fees to Lennar Homes for drainage improvements to Hunter Ridge subdivision.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have a request for a couple modifications. Under our public nuisances, the Community Development Department was just contacted today, and feel confident that in future meetings they'll be able to work out an agreement with a couple of these items. So I'd like to remove 212 South Larkin and 702 Vista Lane from that list.
It's in Council Memo 44-20. So we would need a motion to approve the agenda as written with the removal of 212 South Larkin and 702 Vista Lane from Council Memo 44-20 and vote separately on Council Memo 506-20.
Second.
The motion seconded to approve, Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gabbard. Aye. Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Ledrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rudin. Aye. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. First, we have Andrew Smith.
Sorry, I'm speaking on behalf of 702 Vista Lane. Just here in regard to my aunt, Jacqueline Garcia. It's been a rough 2020 for all of us, but it's been rough for her since 2019. Lost 3 loved ones back to back to back. She went to visit her son in Missouri, and this happened while she was there. She was going to come back come spring, but Corona blown happened, so she's battling with depression, and she's still undecisive what she wants to do with the property. So she is aware that something needs to be done, so she's on the ball after today, for sure.
All right, and our staff thinks he can work something out, Jim?
That's true, Mayor, and that's why we're asking it to be off the agenda.
Good.
That's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Margie Seepan.
Hello and good evening. I'm here again tonight because, Mr. Mayor, I took your comments that I could be mistaken to heart. So I did extra homework and to make sure that I am correct in what I am asserting. So in the economic incentive amendment for Loves and the recapture agreement in front of you this evening for vote, I see these two documents as the economic incentive amendment is removing the $2.5 million motor fuel tax rebate that was established by Council Memo 509-18 on October 2nd, 2018 as the approval of the Love's Truck Stop project in the amount not to exceed $2.5 million. So that's the economic incentive amendment. The recapture agreement I just see as the way that Love's will be paid back the money for the actual cost of the extraordinary infrastructure. So last night, I'd like to thank Mr. Hanson for confirming that in fact, the economic incentive amendment is removing the $2.5 million cap. Another thing that was mentioned and quoted in a Herald News today was quoting Mr. Regis as stating in the meeting, the incentives end either when Love's recovers its cost or at the end of the set time periods, whether or not the costs have been removed. If you were to turn to page 5, paragraph 4 of the recapture agreement, it states, in the event that the developer has not reached the maximum reimbursement of the actual project costs as certified by a certificate of actual costs provided by the developer to the city as required by paragraph 6, which enumerates all of the costs that can be included herein, or $2.5 million, whichever is higher. Then the city shall promptly remit the entirety of such payment. So as I'm reading this, if people, the properties around the water and sewer route that wasn't disclosed yet, in the table provided on page 49 of the recapture agreement, it's listing the amount of money that each PIN number, each parcel number would need to pay as their portion of the utility recapture cost for the actual cost that Love's is spending on the sewer and water infrastructure. Now, those numbers are quite high, and I question if anyone's going to be able to afford it. Those numbers are based on the initial estimate of about $2 million. If these extraordinary costs rise to say 3.5, 4 million, each additional, Mr. Regis did state that those tables would need to be calculated and those costs would rise even more. I researched going back to October 2nd, 2018, and there's another recapture agreement for roadway improvements, and that's for $1.7 million. The city has no financial liability or responsibility to that. It seems to be that the neighboring properties along Old New Lenox Road from Briggs Street heading west would be responsible for that, or any developer that would come in. If you sum up the costs between the water and sewer recapture and the roadway recapture, that's a hefty price for any developer before a shovel goes into the ground. Thank you very much.
Next is Megan Cooper.
Good evening, Council.
Name and address, please, ma'am.
Megan Cooper, Joliet. I'm here to speak today about the repayment to Loves. It actually reads in their recapture agreement, Loves is seeking a 40% fuel tax rebate that would be in place for a 10-year period. The city share of the motor fuel tax is calculated as 2.75% of the total sales revenue, plus an additional 1 cent per gallon of motor fuel. The rebate amount is based upon the actual cost of the expansion of sewer and water systems required by the city and IDOT. I want to get to the plus part. The plus part actually states that motor fuel tax is going to be used to repay loves, not just sales tax, which I do understand that this motor fuel tax is actually not even 1%, according to with the council. You just guys just did a 3-cent tax increase. It should actually be 4 cents, not 1. And this is a per gallon price that you put on this, not as far as sales tax. I know that is different. So, with being said, that 3% tax hike was already earmarked for essential vehicle replacements for the city of Joliet. Like I stated before, police, fire, and also public work vehicles. Not to repay loves, not to repay a company that actually brings in $20.6 billion annually in revenue. Can the city actually afford this? Because to me, if you could, you would be able to write a check for these vehicles and not have to actually sit up here and get bonds to pay for them. So, being said that, this doesn't need to be tabled. That $2.5 million cap, that was already a gift enough. For them to come back and basically say, we want you to foot the whole bill, and not just you, but the taxpayers to foot the whole bill, is totally irresponsible. It would be irresponsible of the city to actually go along with this because, once again, if this costs $4 million, you're on the hook for it. If it costs $10 million, you're on the hook for it. And like they stressed yesterday, they had an estimated cost. That is not the actual cost. And who knows what the actual cost is going to be. But guess what? If you vote yes to that today, you're on the hook for the actual cost of it, no matter what it is. And that is money, and part of that money is money that is earmarked for the benefit of the citizens and actual Joliet itself. You can't pay 2 people out of 1 pot, so you're going to have to choose which one is it going to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on an agenda item this evening? Next on the agenda is Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a motion to appoint Councilwoman Coleman to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the term October 1st, 2020 through December 31st?
So moved.
Second.
Been motion and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under council committee reports, Economic Development Committee report.
The Economic Development Committee met, there we go, on September 8th here in the City Council chambers at 5 p.m. I was unable to attend, and in attendance was Councilman Dickinson and Councilman Morris, who also stepped up and filled the role of chairman. There was one item on there. While I did not attend, I spoke with Councilman Morris and he said, go ahead and give the report. The one item on there was approval for additional hourly services request fee authorization for the proposed Rock Run Crossing public-private partnership. And that was just essentially that what it comes out to be is a change order. In other words, the retainer for this project that they received has been used up for their analysis and we have to, we can't stop them from doing their job until we finish up the project completely. So it was more of a housekeeping item. Was there anything that was brought up concerning that other than housekeeping, gentlemen? No. Terry?
No, sir.
Okay, so it was just to continue letting them be our consultant on this $1 billion project. I think that was the only thing in the agenda for action.
Right.
And then I'm sure you got maybe some updates on current economic development numbers, which are available at our city website. So that would conclude the Economic Development Committee meeting.
Thank you.
Report.
Finance Committee report.
The Finance Committee comprised of Councilwoman Reardon, Councilman Mudron, and myself, met this afternoon at 5:30 this evening. Also in attendance was Jim Gadati. The first thing we did was we reviewed the proposed renewal of the workers' comp broker. It is still going to be Gallagher Bassett with a 2.3% increase. However, it's only going to be a one-year contract. It's a new team that is coming in to oversee the workers' comp, and one that hasn't dealt with the city before. So the staff is recommending a one-year contract. We also had the presentation by Dave Meyer for the 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report Audit, and which he just gave us his comments on that. We also reviewed the monthly financial report with Jim Gadati. It looks like the general fund is still trending down. We are about 8 to 9% million less in gaming revenues. That's the major source of revenue that we're down. We're 8 to 10% down in sales tax. He is predicting a $12 to $18 million deficit at the end of the year. And however, we will be receiving these approximately $6 million in COVID funds from the county. They've lessened their restrictions, so we can use some of that for police and fire salaries. So that $6 million would come off the 12 to 18. Due to the hiring freeze, we have about 25 open positions. And I think that, was there anything else, Jim Gadati? Did I miss anything? Sherry, Pat? Okay. We also reviewed the invoices paid report, found them all to be in order. Under the new business, not for final action, there was a presentation by Bob Filato and Val Devine from the Rialto. They would like some help in paying for their audit this year. Because of the COVID expenses, they are down to 2 full-time staff. So we told them that we would put it on the next agenda for, we did this one other time back when the Rialto was having some cash flow problems. So we told them we would put it on the agenda for our October 20th Finance Committee, and that it would be a recommendation then to the full council. So that concludes the report.
Thank you.
Public Service Committee report.
Public Service met here yesterday in the City Council chambers, September 14th, 2020. On the committee in attendance was myself, Councilwoman Gavin, and Councilman Morris. Under contracts, I'm going to highlight 3 items. The remainder were standard vetting of contracts that were open from sealed bids and awarded, and we vetted that process. What I would bring up is that there we go. 078-20 on our agenda. There was a request by Lennar Homes to get credit for building permit fees to pay half of $103,000 they incurred in doing flood remediation. Now, Lennar Homes was not the original developer for this project at Hunter's Ridge, but they had purchased it from the bank who had foreclosed on the previous developer back in the days of the big recession, and discovered there was more remediation they needed to do than they had anticipated. We discussed it at length as a committee and decided that that's part of their due diligence when they buy that, whether it's from the bank, from another developer, or what have you. And it's unfortunate for them to their bottom business line, but it's not a good precedent for us to set to be paying developers or any business in that regard if they incur a loss based on the risk they take. So it was unanimously voted down as a recommendation to not offer this to the, or grant this to them. Then we had 2 items, 08120 and 08220. Just to make a quick mention of those two, they're both lead water service line replacements. These are the service lines to the house. Joliet does not have and has never had any lead pipes outside of service lines. Prior to the late 1930s, homes were allowed to put in service lines. So we have a program to replace them. One was for 1.3 million. The other one was for, they were both for, one was closer to 1.4 million. But both of these loans, as long as they're spent on lead remediation through this program, are converted to grants by the IEPA. So it's not money that will come out of Joliet, unless we were to fail to install them. We certainly won't. We have more than enough work to do. There was one other item here, if you give me a second. Okay, and then we also looked at and approved the contract for the Mirage Subdivision County Line Road drainage improvements. Now that would include extending the fence, which acts as a strainer, and deepening and modifying the west side of County Line Road's ditch to contain more water, to remediate it, as well as to address flow into the pond over a sidewalk by reducing the level of the sidewalk. So that contract for $144,507.98 to help remediate flooding Mirage Subdivision will be awarded to PT Farrell if you guys agree with the committee and move it forward. Actually, I misspoke. I probably should mention that we also awarded a contract for $63,500 for the roof repair of the Union Station. That will go to Adler Roofing and Sheet Metal, and that is out of a state grant. Again, that's not city dollars. That's out of a state grant because of its historic stature. Maybe I should explain briefly. We rescinded the award of contract for the 2020 sidewalk curb replacement project, and then we rejected the bids on the subsequent one. What had happened was originally bid for about $350,000. Because of COVID, a number of people, a large portion of that was in what we call our 50-50 program, where residents pay half and the city pays half. Well, quite a large number of the residents basically said, we can't follow through on that commitment right now. We'd like to wait a year or two. So we reduced it quite a bit, the original contract from the bid of $350,000 down to about $180,000 or $170,000. And that was not within the scope of the contract awarded to that contractor and would become a losing proposition most likely for that contractor to try to do it at the same level. So after talking to legal, we did rescind that contract and went ahead and rebid it with the lower numbers. However, the lowest number came in $50,000 over it. So we decided to reject those bids so that we will rebid it one more time and make some modifications and hope to lower that, be able to lower that $50,000. So Public Works, as well as Public Utilities, are really watching the pennies, as are the Public Service Committee. Let's see. I think that was it. And then under a change order to pay estimates and final payments, we had 2 items I'd like to mention briefly. Prior to the final payment to PT Farrell Construction for the 2019 roadways resurfacing contract included a $130,784.93 credit from the contractor. They brought it in the budget. So we issued the final payment less that amount for $260,000, or will issue $260,591.64. And then the same thing also happened on the public utility side, where Austin Tyler brought it in under budget, the project, which was the Belmont Interceptor Replacement Project, by $248,046.50, less than the contract called for. So after subtracting that out, we paid their final payout for that project of $240,131.89. And unless I'm remiss, Betty, Terry, that's pretty much covers it. Do you have anything to add?
No, only, that we talked about the sidewalk, that the public is not gonna have to pay any more additional once the contract comes back, remember?
Yes,
Yeah, right.
yes.
I just thought that was important.
That's extremely important, thank you. What Councilman Morris, if you hadn't heard him, if he was turned around, was talking about is those that still remain committed to their 50-50 portion, those residents that can still fit it in their budget even during COVID, the amount that they were told they would pay in the 50-50, regardless of what happens in the new rebid of the project, we will be held to that amount. It won't increase on them. They'll pay the original amount that they agreed to. So that is important. Thank you, Terry. I'd forgotten about that. Anything else? Betty? Terry? The mayor, that would be the report for public service.
Thank you.
I show no other reports. Moving on to consent agenda, approval of the minutes. It's recommended the minutes of the pre-council meeting held on August 31st, 2020, and the minutes of the council meeting held on September 1st, 2020 stand approved as recorded. Invoices paid report. It's recommended this report be received and placed on file. Council memo 477-20, receipt of the 2019 comprehensive annual financial report. It's recommended this report be received and placed on file. Is there a motion to approve said consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug,
Aye?
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon. Aye. Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin. Motion carried. Under public hearings, Council Memo 479-20, ordinances and resolution associated with gas and wash Route 6 at Gowger subdivision. This includes an ordinance approving the annexation of 4.19 acres located at the southeast corner of Route 6 and Gowger Road. An ordinance approving the classification to B3 general business zoning. An ordinance approving the annexation of 0.58 acres located at the southeast corner of Route 6 and Gowger Road. An ordinance approving the classification to B3 general business zoning. A resolution approving an annexation agreement. And an ordinance approving the preliminary plat, the final plat, and the recording plat of gas and wash Route 6 at Gowger Road subdivision Unit 1. This is a public hearing, so comments would be in order at this time.
Does anyone like to speak on this item?
Seeing none, let the record show that the hearing is now closed. Staff is recommending the ordinances and resolution be adopted. So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin. Councilman Hug.
Aye?
Motion carried. Next, under public hearings is Council Memo 480-20, proposed Rock Run Crossing redevelopment project area tax increment financing district eligibility study and redevelopment plan and project. This public hearing was opened at a previous meeting and continued to today. Staff is recommending this to be continued to the October 6th, 2020 council meeting. So if anyone is present, the public hearing was previously open, so it would be appropriate to speak this evening if anybody is here. Seeing none, is there a motion to continue Council Memo 480-20 and the public hearing to the October 6, 2020 council meeting?
So moved.
It's been motioned and seconded to continue Council Memo 480-20, which is the proposed Rock Run Crossing redevelopment project area tax increment financing district eligibility study and redevelopment plan and project to the October 6, 2020 council meeting. Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin. Councilman Hug.
Aye?
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under ordinances, Council Memo 482-20, an ordinance approving a variation of use to continue a mixed-use commercial and residential building in an I-2 General Industrial Zoning District located at 742, 744 Collins Street. It's recommended said ordinance be adopted.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Pullman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 483-20 is an ordinance accepting easements associated with the Gardensie Avenue over Spring Creek Bridge Improvement Project. It's recommended said ordinance be adopted.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Pullman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 484-20 is an ordinance declaring certain properties as public nuisances. This will be, approving this would be also removing 212 South Larkin and 702 Vista Lane from the list of public nuisances. So it's recommended the ordinance be adopted with removal of 212 South Larkin and 702 Vista Lane. Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Pullman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under resolutions, Council Memo 486-20, a resolution authorizing an amendment to the economic incentive agreement between the City of Joliet and Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores. A revised amendment was placed on the dais this evening.
Chris, you want to address the council about the revisions?
Sure, hi everyone. We talked about this last night, and there seemed to be a bit of confusion about it. So I did make some amendment to the resolution about the amendment to the economic incentive agreement. And I put a lot of clarifying language in there. You guys have it in front of you. The language is highlighted, and I really think I made it clear as far as the economic incentive goes. The second young lady who spoke about it earlier was concerned that the 4 cents gas that is earmarked to pay off vehicles, it's spelled out, that's called the gas privilege tax, is what it's called. It's spelled out specifically in there that 4 cents does not apply, nor is it any part of any kind of rebate to Love's, and that the sole source of the, as far as that agreement goes, the sole source of it is the 2.75% sales tax only as it applies to motor fuel sales. So candy bars and all that other stuff that they're gonna sell, you still get the full tax on that, only 2.75%. That's what comes back to us. And they're entitled to a rebate of 40% of that 2.75% is what Love's gets. Now, as far as the concern that was expressed about the changing amount, about the $2.5 million, it was very clear in the original, from 2018, in the original resolution regarding economic incentive, that $2.5 million, once again, was the estimated cost. I mean, there's certainly nobody up there or anywhere who really thought that the engineering costs for those improvements would come in at $2.5 million to the penny. Of course not. This council deals with change orders at every single meeting. There's change orders coming in. The cost might be above it, the cost might be below it. If the costs are above it, Love's would not get their full reimbursement, which is not in the spirit of any agreement we've ever made. And if the cost actually comes in below it, Love's will be getting money that they're not entitled to, which once again is certainly not in the spirit of any agreement that we've ever made. All the amendment says is they're gonna get the actual cost, and if it gives some measure of comfort, we did speak with Loves today, and the gentleman, Mr. Sheffield, who's appeared in front of us many times, said that the estimated cost is still around $2.5 million. Keep in mind, that's a 2018 figure. That the cost is never gonna be the same as it was back then. All they're asking for is what they're entitled to. And as far as, at one time it was 2.5 million, you're right, it was. This is an amendment. Yes, we're changing that agreement, and the only substantive change in that agreement really is identifying another source of the repayment, and that is the recapture money. So instead of just one source, the taxes, getting to that actual amount, whatever it is, we now have two sources that eliminates the city's obligation sooner. And whatever Loves doesn't get in the recapture, the city is entitled to get, and based on the math in the agreement, the money that the city's gonna get is gonna be exactly what we gave Loves in the tax rebate. So we're gonna be made whole of the tax money. It's a zero-sum option, and we get to the same place regardless of how we get there. Loves gets their money, the city gets back the money that we gave to Loves through the tax rebates. And keep in mind, those utilities that are gonna go in, they're gonna run from Cherry Hill Road down New Lenox Road to Briggs Street, just west of Briggs Street. That's not just for Loves. That's an opportunity. Everybody's been down that stretch of New Lenox Road that's largely undeveloped. That is a prime area on the southeast side for economic development. And the existence of municipal utilities on that road is gonna make it that much more attractive to developers. That's the reason that we do these things. Are there any questions about this at all?
Mayor, Chris, just to clarify, the amendment allowing for the tampon fees to be included along with the 40% of the home rule tax is to speed up the payment so that the full amount starts coming to the city coffers sooner.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And then I'm going to follow up behind Mayor, if you don't mind, because I did speak with Chris today about this, and I wanted a clarification.
Sure.
Nothing's changed when it comes to the 2.5 million, regardless of what a summary summary memo by staff may have said. The document that we're basing it on here, this dates to January of 2019, which was a final document going back to the 2018 estimates and so forth. And right there in the document, it reads, the maximum total rebate shall be the documented costs of the improvement project, which are currently estimated, not capped, estimated at 2.5 million. In no event shall Loves receive a total rebate in excess of the documented costs of the improvement project, nor receive rebate payments hereunder for a period longer than 10 years. Collected over 10 years, and if you can't, which I'm sure they will, we're hoping sooner, then they move on. However, Loves can request an amendment to this agreement in the event that extraordinary costs put the repayment in jeopardy. That's been in the agreement since the beginning, going back to January of last year. And right now, we aren't increasing what they're going to get as a rebate because we don't know still. It was always an estimate, and it was stated as an estimate. This was dated January 9th, 2019, resolution number 7323, a resolution authorizing execution of an economic incentive rebate agreement with Loves Travel Stops and Country Stores Incorporated. So it's certainly available. Is it available online?
It is.
It's certainly available online, so individual residents and the media can go look and see. Nothing has changed. And ultimately, if it stays at 2.5 million, then the estimate was pretty darn good. If it goes lower, then Loves gets less of the rebate back and probably would retire it sooner. If it goes higher, they're entitled to, unless it becomes extraordinarily high, in which we go back to the negotiating table and say, look, can we tack another 2-3 years on possibly to try to collect the extra $1.5 million or whatever it might be. We don't have that answer yet. Now, 40% of the 2.75% retail sales tax, let's use a round number, $100,000. Currently on that lot, actually all along New Lenox Road, as you pointed out, on the lot to be developed, we are collecting zero sales tax. Zero. I believe it's still agricultural, isn't it? So zero sales tax. Once they build their store and they start collecting, let's say the first 100,000, we've got to give 400,000 to them. So we're stuck with only a measly 600,000 versus the current amount, which is Zero. At the conclusion of retiring the investment they have in bringing the city sewer and water system out that far and up to grade, at that conclusion, we get all the money. Now, typically what can happen, and we've done this with other, we had some, down by Emerald in Route 53. We did a very similar thing several years ago. Typically, if you want to develop as a city into a new area without sewer and water, typically the city would pay for it up front and then try to collect it the same way that Love's is going to collect it over time, okay? We're not using our money to build this. They're using our money. It's almost like an unofficial loan, if you will. Well, we don't have to pay the 2.5 or 3 million, whatever it turns out to be. They're going to pay it, and then we're working with them as partners so they can collect the money back, just like we would if we paid it. But we don't have to front the money. With that said, I just wanted to read. There was some confusion, and Ms. Cooper, I believe her name was correct. It could be confusing to some people who aren't familiar. The 4-cent tax, the state's 19-cent motor fuel tax, can't be used for rebate, okay? If you don't know that, it did look like we were including that. If you didn't understand the difference between the occupational retail tax for home rule, as well as and I forget the other one, Chris, what's it called? The 4-cent? I'm sorry?
The gas privilege tax.
The gas privilege tax. So Chris did take the time today to make it obvious to anybody that reads it and doesn't understand the difference between the two taxes. Just so you know, subject to the satisfactory completion of the improvement project described in paragraph 3 of this agreement and issuance of an occupancy permit, the opening of its business in the city of Joliet at the premises in compliance with other terms, conditions, and limitations of this agreement, Love shall receive a partial rebate of sales tax on motor fuel as set forth herein to be called rebate. For the purpose of this agreement, the term sales tax shall mean distributions made to the city of Joliet by the state of Illinois in respect to the business of Love's, or not that of its successors and assigns, regarding the sale of gasoline and diesel fuel located at the premises, which are attributable to the portion of tax, I'm getting into the good part, imposed on Love's by the Retailer's Occupation Tax Act, okay? As amended in the city of Joliet, which is paid into the local government tax fund, 2.75% is the rate. Sales tax for the purpose of this agreement shall not include the 4-cent per gallon gasoline privilege tax. It did not include it originally, but I said, and Chris agreed, let's clean it up and make it simple for those that don't understand without clarification. So it's been clarified what already was in the agreement. Okay? So I think I've covered everything. Chris, did I miss anything? I know you didn't.
I think, are there any questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ben. Chris, I'm looking at the schedule of recapture fees,
Yes, sir.
and there's 46 properties. I assume most of them are on New Lenox Road, probably.
Most if not all, yes.
Yeah, and a lot of them are vacant property, there's homes on there. In order for them to connect, though, they're gonna have to annex to the city of Joliet, correct? Because I don't think we provide water and sewer service to, people who are not city residents,
Well, sometimes we do.
but it's not common.
Normally, no,
Right.
we don't.
Right, right.
Each case is different, right? I mean, like, for example, Fairmont, we
Correct,
made an agreement with them, so sometimes we do that.
Okay.
Generally, that's not the preferred method.
but that last column would be the property owner's cost, say like
On the far right-hand side.
$48,000
there should be-
to connect, okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Using Councilman Hugg's number, when we get to the 10 years, if there would still be $1 million that has not been reimbursed, based on this contract, they could come back and ask to extend it past the 10 years, but our commitment today would be over. Is that somewhat correct?
You are correct, sir. They can come back to us. And also remember, the tax incentive is valid for 10 years, the recapture for 20. So if the goal has not been met at the end of 10 years, there are still 10 more years of recapture that provides the potential of meeting that reimbursement goal.
Thank you.
Yes, Terry.
So, Chris, following, Councilman Mudger, so after the 10 years, the sales tax comes to the city. the 40% that they've been getting the 10 years,
Hopefully sooner, but yes.
hopefully soon. But yet and still, as Councilman said, it's still $1 million owed, but they get that in the recapture, but the city starts getting the sales tax
You are correct, sir.
in that. Okay, one other question, just to help me understand. Why was it a number put in, an estimate number of 2.5 million estimate put in and not 4 million or not 2 million? Because I was under the impression, let me just finish this and I'll have a chance. You know, I get kind of long, that the line was coming from Mills Road, which is a lot closer than
Okay, I got you.
the Cherry Hill. So if it was 2.5 estimate early on from, and I could be wrong, from Mills, that's almost twice the land, which is okay because after 10 years, whatever's left is gonna come back. The city started, as you just said, start getting the sales tax. But then the city would be losing out on the recapture fee if a company wants to come in 15 years from now, when we could have been getting that recapture fee if there's just a cap at the 2.5 million, like, and when you say cap, even to myself, it was understood that that was the amount, 2.5 million. So, you get my question?
I do, you threw a lot at me, so let me.
Okay, sorry.
Let me answer that. Okay, the 2.5 million, from the very beginning, that was an engineer's estimate, right? And on every bid that goes out from the city, there's an engineering estimate on that bid. This is no different. This is what they ballpark the figure at. And like I said, we talked to Mr. Sheffield today, and they still ballpark the figure at that, but everyone knows it's not gonna be exactly that,
Right.
because it never is exactly.
Right.
Right? As far as, the alternate route, you said there are lines up on Mills Road. There are, but as I recall, the right-of-way was more expensive. New Lenox Road is a township road, and we get an automatic right-of-way underneath township, rights-of-way for our municipal utilities. Ridge Street is a county road, and that's a totally different deal. So that's why New Lenox Road, was selected as the route, as I recall.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Is there a motion to approve Council Memo 486-20, a resolution authorizing the revised amendment to the economic incentive agreement between the City of Joliet and Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores?
So moved.
Second.
Been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin?
No.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
No.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman?
Well, I had many, many questions today, and they were all answered, and I don't see anything, we've already approved it, and it's only gonna be economic development for the east side, which they keep saying how dry they are on the east side, they need development, and this will be a little grocery store as well, and it'll spark other development, which is what we sorely need on the east side, so I'm going to vote aye.
Councilwoman Reardon?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?
No.
Motion carried 5-3. Council Memo 487-20 is a resolution authorizing a recapture agreement between the City of Joliet and Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Gavin?
No.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
You know, I don't think any of us, other than Mike, will probably be here in 10 years. And I don't want who's sitting here to just come back to be evergreen terrace type of thing. I know Chris seems like he get, all the i's dotted and the t's crossed. I just hope, from day one, I just didn't think this was the right project for that area. I support economic development to the fullest, but again, I vote no.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
No.
Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Motion carried, 5-3. Next is Council Memo 488-20, a resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funding for the Arch Court Clinton Street to Cass Street roadway improvement project 2020 in the amount of $103,490.35. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved. Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris, Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin. Motion carried. Council Memo 489-20 is a resolution authorizing execution of a pipeline crossing agreement between the City of Joliet and Union Pacific Railroad. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 490-20 is a resolution authorizing a home subrecipient agreement between Will County, Illinois and the City of Joliet. It's recommended said resolution be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin,
Aye.
Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under award of contracts, Council Memo 492-20, award a contract for the Mirage Subdivision County Line Road Drainage Improvements 2020 to PT Farrell Construction Company in the amount of $144,507.98. Council Memo 493-20, purchase 10 2021 Ford Police Interceptor Utility all-wheel drive vehicles from Ron Tirapelli Ford in Shorewood, Illinois for $368,782.40, and purchase accessories and wraps from Ray O'Haron Lund Industries and Element Graphics for a not-to-exceed price of $69,077.50. Council Memo 494-20, purchase a tandem axle vacuum excavation truck for the Public Utilities Division from Standard Equipment Company in the amount of $442,860. Council Memo 495-20, award a contract for the Well 20D Rehabilitation Project to Great Lakes Water Resource Group in the amount of $62,585. Council Memo 496-20, award a contract for the Well 21D Rehabilitation Project to Lane Christensen Company in the amount of $662,651. Council Memo 497-20, rescind the award of contract for the 2020 sidewalk curb replacement project, contract number 2417-0320 to Globe Construction in the amount of $351,800, and reject the bids for the 2020 sidewalk curb replacement project, contract number 2526-0920. Council Memo 498-20, award a contract for roof repairs at Joliet Union Station to J.L. Adler Roofing and Sheet Metal in the amount of $63,500. Council Memo 499-20, award a contract for the Arch Court Clinton Street, Cass Street roadway improvement project 2020 to PT Farrell Construction Company in the amount of $208,730.70. Council Memo 500-20, award a contract for the West Side wastewater treatment plant influent lift station improvements Phase 3 to Williams Brothers Construction in the amount of $4,670,000. Council Memo 501-20, award a contract for the lead water service line replacement project Phase 2B to Stitt Brothers Excavating in the amount of $1,324,268.95. Council Memo for 502-20, award a contract for the lead water service line replacement project Phase 2C to Austin Tyler Construction in the amount of $1,374,700.50. And Council Memo 503-20, approval of additional hourly services request for fee authorization, proposed Rock Run Crossing Public-Private Partnership. It's recommended Council Memos 492-20 through 503-20 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under amendments, change orders, and payments, Council Memo 505-20, approve the proposed renewal of workers' compensation broker. We will skip for now Council Memo 506-20 and vote on that separately. Next is Council Memo 507-20, approve change order number 2 in the amount of negative $130,784.93, and payment request number 6 and final for the 2019 roadways resurfacing contract C to PT Farrell Construction Company in the amount of $260,591.64. And Council Memo 508-20, approve change order number 4 for the Belmont Interceptor Replacement Project to Austin Tyler Construction in the amount of negative $248,046.50, and final payout in the amount of $240,131.89. It's recommended Council Memos 505-20, 507-20, and 508-20 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve. Councilwoman Reardon,
Aye.
Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Colvin.
Aye.
Next is Council Memo 506-20, credit building permit fees to Lennar Homes for drainage improvements to Hunters Ridge Subdivision 2020 in an amount not to exceed $52,000.
I would make a motion to deny or reject this. Again, it was unanimously voted on by the committee not to do this.
It's in motion and seconded to deny Council Memo 506-20 credit building permit fees to Lennar Homes for drainage improvements to Hunter Ridge Subdivision. Councilman Turk,
Aye.
Councilman Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin, Councilman Hug,
Aye.
Councilman Morris,
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman,
Aye.
Councilwoman Reardon.
Aye.
Motion carried. Council Memo 506-20 was denied. Next is the city manager report.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up on a couple items from the last council meeting. Councilman Turk asked the status of the senior tequilas on Jefferson Avenue. Corporate counsel and our economic development specialist are working on a developmental agreement to have a Basinger Pharmacy there, and it's proceeding. They're just working on language, and they hope to have it at the October Economic Development Committee meeting. So, and you also asked about bridges, and so I would ask Jim Trisna to come out and address the uniqueness of all of our bridges in the downtown. And again, this is because we constantly find ourselves with one or another bridge up in the air for an extremely, what seems to be an extremely long period of time. Thank you, Jim.
In regard to the bridge closed on Jefferson, particularly Jefferson, we've had that happen quite a few times over the last quite a few years. I did a little research, found out that I remember this, 1998, it was like October of 1998, there was a barge that collided with the Jefferson Street Bridge. It hit one of the abutments, I believe, did damage to the structural damage to the bridge. Bridge was closed for 5.5 months. It reopened early April. In that situation, IDOT allowed a two-way conversion of Cass Street. Basically, people went down Hickory, traveled north on Hickory to Cass. Cass was converted two-way. It had two lanes westbound, one lane eastbound. We had to make some modifications on Cass at the intersection of Cass and Joliet, as well as we had to modify southbound Joliet, but it worked out okay. We did that, the state allowed that, and they allowed it again about 2.5 years later. Another barge hit the same bridge and did structural damage in 2001. That time we were out of commission for 4 months. Those are the only 2 times since I've been here, I've been here a long time, that I remember the state allowing that. I believe they did it because it was an emergency situation. It was not a planned outage. They had, to be honest with you, they went at the barge's insurance company. The state got money for the repairs. We got money to make the modification, put in the traffic control, pavement markings, and all that business. People working overtime for a while. They had a lot of overtime working there with the public police department, particularly some of the public works guys. They did allow it then. Then we've had obviously scheduled bridge repairs quite often on Jefferson since that point in time. The state has never allowed us to go back to it. I know the mayor, you wrote a letter in July of 18, talked about the 2 instances, and at that point, again, it was because of scheduled bridge repairs. The state at that point has come back and said, look, these are scheduled, we're not gonna allow this. Actually, Randy Blankenhorn wrote a letter back to this. Actually, I believe it was somebody from St. Joe Medical Center. At that point, it was still called St. Joe Medical Center in Alameda. They had asked that the bridge be converted two-way, and the state came back specifically from Randy Blankenhorn, who was the Secretary of Transportation at the time. This is in 18, saying they're not going to allow this anymore. Very concerned about safety, and I understand what he was saying. When you go from a one-way bridge, you go two-way for a while. When you go back to the one-way conversion, we had a couple accidents, head-on accidents. It was pretty dangerous. People get used to the two-way configuration. You take it off, and people first don't realize it, and people are that happens. They were very concerned about safety. I know the state also said they were looking into. I know there was a request to do converting Cass Street, which is US 30 westbound, and or Jefferson Street, which is Jefferson Street to US 30 eastbound, to two-way roadways. They've never come back and given us an answer on that. However, I know with the capacity of the amount of traffic ADT on those 2 streets it's pretty substantial. They're both probably around 11,000 vehicles a day. And they would need 2 lanes for each direction of traffic. So if we, for example, if we were to do that on Jefferson Street, you've got parking on both sides allowed right now when you come across the river and you get into the downtown area. And there's concrete, there's bump outs, and these are pretty expensive. You basically have to go and lose that. They also want a turn lane in the center. There's not a lot of right-of-way on either one of those streets. The buildings are right up to the right-of-way. It might be 80-foot max. You'd need a minimum of like 60 foot for the probably 63 feet for the pavement for 5 12-foot lanes. I don't really see the state come back and saying they're going to allow that, for either one of those streets. But that's where we're at. Like I said, the mayor, you worked hard with the state of that. They said they're just not going to do this anymore. And again, I think the only reason I really think they did when those 2 incidents I mentioned in 1998 and 2001, because of the barge collision. Nobody could gear up for this, and those were long times the bridges were out. And I think, side note, the state had somebody to go after for the the costs, the repairs, as well as, you know, all the traffic control and the pavement markings, things of that nature. So I think that's the reason they allow it. But I just don't see it happening again. And I've not really heard back at the states, even though look at this study. The other thing is, keep in mind, if you were to say, well, maybe take Route 30 off those routes, you kind of got to be careful what you ask for. I mean, a couple of things could happen. If that happens, you're limiting, you may have less traffic coming in and out through the downtown, which, you know, I know we're all trying to promote, you know, new businesses and people traffic, you know, coming through our downtown. And the other thing is, as we all know, the state, as much as it's kind of frustrating, the state does maintain all the lift bridges in Joliet, starting at Ruby. Bridge Street is actually strictly a city street. Obviously, Ruby Street is Illinois 53. Bridge Street is our street. It's strictly the city of Joliet Street. The state does maintain that lift bridge. Obviously, Cass Street, Jefferson, and McDonough, which is, you know, that's Route 6 and 52. So, you know, we were to say, you know, let's take that Route 30 off there. We might all of a sudden get into a position where the state tells us, yeah, we may consider doing that, but you Joliet, take over those bridges. And I don't think we want to take over those bridges. Right? I know we want to take over those bridges. Those bridges are 90 years plus old. They're very old, very expensive, and repairs happen. So again, as much as it's an inconvenience, at least we don't have to flip the bill for that. So again, I think we've got to be careful what we ask for. Okay?
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I believe you told us this information maybe a meeting or so ago. When do we anticipate that bridge being open? Though?
Jefferson, not till the end of December.
Okay, great.
And based on parts they've got, that they got to get, you know, machined and things like that.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
thank you.
That's all I have for the manager's report.
Next is new business not for final action or recommendation.
Nothing.
Sam,
No.
Mike, Pat, Terry, Sharon, Betty.
Yes, we're having a, like for public utilities, public works, to look at, we have an issue on Luther Avenue, the north end of Luther. A lot of water, a lot of, flooding in that area. So if they can kind of take a look at that and see where we are with that and what's causing that. Okay.
Okay.
Next is public comments. First is Candace Quinterly.
Good evening, everybody. First,
If you can identify yourself for the record, name and address, please.
my name is Candace Quinterly, Joliet, Illinois. Brought a couple gifts for Larry and Doug and Jan. If you guys can pass these to them. So first, I would like to express my personal disappointment with how the Public Safety Committee handled their last meeting on the 1st. For the record, if anybody is unaware, the last meeting that they had before September 1st was in March. So none of us had any reason to think that we would, need to attend this Public Safety Committee meeting because the initial meeting that we had regarding police reform was held in a joint committee meeting with legislative and land use. We were also told by Jan that we'd be given ample notice, likely the same notice that the speaker from wherever she spoke on Narcan at the last meeting, likely the same notice that she got. You guys also spent a lot of time talking about things that were irrelevant to what we asked for. But I digress. Moving on, body cams. They have been a topic of discussion well before these proposals were brought before you guys, which means they must be of some importance. However, as you guys continue to pass $60 million police budgets, where a bulk of the funding goes towards salaries, it seems not to be a priority. Instead of introducing a line item for body cameras for $800,000, that's your number, you guys would rather continue to put citizen and officer lives and livelihoods in danger and keep wasting taxpayer dollars settling lawsuits. Additionally, we didn't ask for tasers to be included for consideration, so that didn't even need to be included at all. Considering the financial loss that the city is definitely going to face due to COVID-19, it's likely not in anybody's best interest to keep facing lawsuits that could be prevented by the implementation of body cameras. Jan, at the Public Safety Committee meeting, you stated that you would not support defunding the police because we need the money for other things, quote. That is literally exactly why you should defund the police. Then you will have money available for other things. Defunding the police does not mean abolish the police. We want police. It just means reallocating funds to different areas where they are needed, and that the money may be better spent. Additionally, I need to note that it's not statute for that a civilian oversight committee cannot exist in tandem with the police and fire board. For example, Chicago has a civilian oversight committee called COPA, that stands for Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and they work with the Chicago Police Board. And just a couple things that they do: they determine whether allegations of police misconduct are well-founded. They identify and address patterns of police misconduct. They even make policy recommendations to improve the Chicago Police Department, thereby reducing incidents of police misconduct. Now, it took a minimal amount of effort to locate this information, so I'm sure you guys could have found it if you wanted to. Out of respect for everybody's time, I'm not going to address every issue because I expect that this is going to be addressed again sometimes very soon. You guys should probably have the previous meeting struck from the record and conduct it properly. I suggest that you guys stop acting like we are unintelligent or incompetent and actually do your jobs. Pass police reform now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Susanna Ibarra.
Hello, so nice to be here tonight. I sent messages to everyone.
Name and address for the record, please.
Suzanne Ibarra, Joliet. I want to thank Mr. Turk, Councilman Turk, for answering me. I've messaged every single one of you. Councilman Turk is the only one who messaged me back, so thank you for that. I also want to thank Terry Morris for the last meeting we were at when he talked about police accountability, Citizens Police Accountability Board. You took him off that case really quick and then gave it to Jan, Larry, and Doug. So I have listened to the meeting, Jan, and I have a special award for you. It's special recognition for Jan Coleman, Best Dramatic Performance for, I don't know why nobody from the public is here. So this is for you.
Step back.
You know why the public
Mr.
wasn't
Barr,
here.
Mr. Barr.
This is my time.
Don't
I'm
approach
gonna
the council
finish.
again.
I'm
Everybody else
reclaiming
sit
my
down.
time. I get 4 minutes.
Tony.
This is my 4 minutes.
Ma'am, you're not gonna
Stop.
argue with me,
This
and
is
you're not
my
gonna
4
approach the city
minutes. I'm
council.
reclaiming my time. This is my public.
It's not the way it works, ma'am. I'm the presiding
Defunding
officer.
the police
If you don't follow
is
the rules,
not
you're gonna be asked to leave
abolish
the
police.
room.
Defunding calls for reallocation of funds to areas that are insufficiently funded and will help the community. Police are burdened with too many tasks that would often be better suited for other trained professionals. By placing so much responsibility on officers, it spreads them too thin, especially in situations where they are ill-equipped and leaves room for mistakes, which can prove to be fatal. Body cams. Body cameras serve as a protection for both officers and citizens. Cities all over the country have body cams, and a city of this size should certainly have them. An excuse that the city cannot afford them is not valid. The city cannot afford not to have them, considering all the lawsuits you're facing now. Civilian Oversight Committee. This is meant to be separate from a police and fire board. This should be a committee that is not appointed by the mayor. Having such committee holds officers accountable while building public trust. If a committee like this were in place, perhaps we wouldn't be standing here tonight. Drug testing. Currently, officers may be drug tested, but there is no structure in place to take action if they test positive. This should also extend to alcohol testing as well. JPD needs to be proactive with this and implementing fair disciplinary actions across the board. Anti-racism screening. It has been noted that officers take diversity training, most jobs do, and people take the course to keep their job. However, this is not anti-racist. There are outwardly racist officers within the Joliet Police Department as we speak. So much so that other officers have filed suit. This is an issue that desperately needs to be addressed, especially in today's social climate. 3-strike rule. This is not to punish good cops. This is something that needs to be implemented to deter problem behavior and to suss out bad cops. If an officer is continually committing offenses that would warrant suspensions, this officer does need to be on the force as they have shown that they cannot be trusted to follow the rules. No reasonable person would think that any of these things are detrimental to the community. Every single thing mentioned will benefit our community in a big way. Pass police reform now. Thank you so much. And I do have a friend who's on COPA, and he can come and speak to any of you about how that police and fire, how that works. Thank you.
If I can remind us speakers, when you address the council, if you can give your name and address for the record, and don't approach the council, Ms. Ibarra. You've been here long enough. I think you know that was improper. So,
Jonathan Markwart.
Jonathan Markwart, Joliet, Illinois, 60435. Hello to the council. First, I want to say hi. I'm glad you missed it here. I'd like to congratulate Jan on the appointment to Pro Tem Board. If you do end up using powers as mayor, I really do hope that you do good by us. I do come bearing a gift for the council as well. I have here a ceramic goose, because I feel that we all have been silly gooses here, as far as police reform goes. So, given the previous comments about not approaching the council, I would like an answer.
give it to the clerk when you're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will do. All right. Couple things here. First, I'd like to point out how absurd I think it is that we can earmark, propose, whatever we want to say, budget money for specifically new vehicles for police and fire, but we can't really seem to find the pulse on body cameras. Especially having looked at like salary information and stuff later, we really don't need to have more money pushed up for it too. And if we're able to talk about existing monies, things that have been earmarked in the past, redirecting that towards vehicles while absolutely not talking about body cameras frequently enough, I think that's a little bit absurd. Body cameras serve a very important purpose for both the protection of civilians and police officers. A ton of other cities have body cameras at this point, and a city of our size, we should definitely have them at this point. Excuses about not being able to afford them are notwithstanding at this point, because like I said, I've looked at salary information recently. I really do feel like we can allocate things from different places to get this taken care of. And the city simply cannot afford to keep not having them. Because I mean, one lawsuit about this stuff versus the cost of having them in the first place, think about saving yourself on all that, you know? I'd also like to restate my willingness personally to be a part of a civilian oversight committee, such we do get one. I'd also like to remind that it should not be appointed by the mayor and that it would be separate from the existing police and fire board. We would work together, like the COPA board that has been mentioned previously. We would work together, but they are to be separate, and it should not be appointed by the mayor. Having such a committee helps hold officers and other parts of the community accountable, and also helps build trust. Because at the end of the day, what we have going on here is distrust. We feel uncomfortable, we feel afraid, we feel however you want to say it, we feel. Building trust between the community and existing police forces, very important. I certainly wouldn't be here bugging you guys tonight if we did have that board in the first place. I'd be on that board. With that, I thank you, and I will go give the goose to the clerk. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Kia Watson.
Kia, Joliet, 60432. Council members, we are here to make it clear that police reform is not a joke. I know we were joking a little bit earlier, but we are all very serious about this, which is why we are still here. I do want to make it clear we're not going anywhere. So we implore you, we're asking, again, for you to take the issue seriously, take us seriously. So defunding the police. Defunding does not mean abolishing the police. Like how different words have different meaning. We're not saying get rid of the police. We're saying that police take on too much. There's too much for them. So spread the funds, maybe mental health professionals, social workers, because there are some things and some people that police are not trained properly to deal with. And it can be fatal. It can get very violent, very fast. Body cameras, that is that is a whole issue. I haven't been in Joliet my whole life. I've been here for 3 years, and just now finding out the police don't have body cameras. And we've all seen the budget. We know how much money you have, and we know that you can afford them. And like my colleagues have said, you can't afford not to have them. We need body cameras. Drug testing, so there is no structure in place for if officers test positive for drugs, and we need to extend this to alcohol as well. Anti-racism screening. That's kind of a joke here. It's easy to pass these tests in the 3-strike rule. This is not meant to punish good cops, because believe it or not, we do know that those exist. We know that there are good cops. If you are a good cop, a 3-strike system shouldn't be an issue, because you wouldn't get to 3 strikes in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brittany Kim. Brittany Kim, New Lenox, former Joliet resident. Council members, we are here to make it clear to you that we do not believe police reform is a joke. We implore you to finally take this issue seriously. As cities around the country face continuous unrest, we have been peaceful, we have been reasonable, we have been patient, but we will not go away quietly. There have been too many excuses concerning police reform in Joliet, as other cities are passing reforms overnight. As a reminder, here are the items that all of you have dismissed. Again, starting with defunding the police. Defunding the police is not equal to abolishing the police. Defunding calls for reallocation of funds to areas that are insufficiently funded and will help the community. Police are burdened with too many tasks that would often be better suited for other trained professionals. By placing so much responsibility on officers, it spreads them too thin, especially in situations where they are ill-equipped and leaves room for mistakes which have proven to be fatal. Body cameras serve as a protection both for officers and citizens. Cities all over the country have body cams, and the city of this size certainly should have them. An excuse that the city cannot afford them is not valid. The city cannot afford not to have them. Civilian Oversight Committee. This is meant to be separate from the Police and Fire Board. This should be a committee that is not appointed by the mayor. Having such a committee helps hold officers accountable while building public trust. If a committee like this were in place, perhaps we wouldn't have to be here again tonight. Drug testing. Currently, officers may be drug tested, but there is no structure in place if they are to test positive, again, including alcohol. This should be also extend to alcohol as well. JPD needs to be proactive in implementing their fair disciplinary actions across the board. Anti-racism screening. It has been noted that officers take diversity training. Most jobs do, and people that take courses to keep their job. However, this is not anti-racist. There are outwardly racist officers within the Joliet Police Department as we speak, so much so that officers have filed suit. This is an issue that desperately needs to be addressed, especially in today's social climate. 3-strike rule. Again, this is not to punish good cops. Again, we know that they do exist. This is something that needs to be implemented to deter problematic behavior and to suss out bad cops. And if an officer continuously commits offenses that would warrant suspension, that officer does not need to be on force, as they have shown that they cannot be trusted to follow the rules. No reasonable person would think that any of these things are detrimental to the community. Every single thing announced will benefit our community in a big way. We need to pass police reform now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ariana Schuler.
Hi, my name's Ariana Schuler, longtime Joliet resident. Like Candace said, I think the last meeting that you guys had where you went over some of the things that we proposed, I think that does need to be struck out. We need to redo it. We weren't here, and you know why. Okay, Council members, we are here to make clear that police reform is not a joke and implore you to finally take this issue seriously. As cities around the country face continuous unrest, we have been peaceful, we have been reasonable, we have been patient. But we will not go away quietly. There have been too many excuses concerning police reform in Joliet, as other cities are passing reforms overnight. As a reminder, here are the items you have dismissed. Defunding the police. Defunding the police is not equal to abolishing the police. Defunding calls for reallocation of funds to areas that are insufficiently funded and will help the community. Police are burdened with too many tasks that would often be better suited for other trained professionals. By placing so much responsibility on officers, it spreads them too thin, especially in situations where they are ill-equipped and leave room for mistakes, which can prove to be fatal. Body cams. Body cameras serve as a protection for both officers and citizens. Cities all over the country have body cams, and a city of this size should certainly have them. An excuse that the city cannot afford them is not valid. The city cannot afford to not have them. Civilian Oversight Committee. This is meant to be separate from the Police and Fire Board. This should be a committee that is not appointed by the mayor. Having such a committee helps hold officers accountable while building public trust. If a committee like this were in place, perhaps we wouldn't be standing here tonight. Drug testing. Currently, officers may be drug tested, but there is no structure in place to take action if they test positive. This should also extend into alcohol testing as well. JPD needs to be proactive in implementing fair disciplinary actions across the board. Anti-racism screening. It has been noted that officers take diversity training. Most jobs do, and people take the course to keep their job. However, this is not anti-racist. There are outwardly racist officers within the Joliet Police Department as we speak, so much so that officers have filed suit. This is an issue that desperately needs to be addressed, especially in today's social climate. Free strike rule. This is not meant to punish good cops. This is something that needs to be implemented to deter problem behavior and to suss out bad cops. If an officer is continually committing offenses that would warrant suspensions, that officer does not need to be on the force, as they have shown that they cannot be trusted to follow the rules. No reasonable person would think that any of these things are detrimental to the community. Every single thing mentioned will benefit our community in a big way. Pass police reform now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Hervey.
I want to say before, and I think Mr. Hervey, but we're not going to hear the same speech over and over again. If someone has something new to say, go forward. If not, we're going to move forward. But I suspect you do. You're not going to read from a script?
No, I do my research and present the facts. But what I like to do, though, is ask for a motion to extend my time by 4 minutes. To give me a solid 8, I can do that.
I want that.
Will you grant it? Can I get it granted? Because it's in the.
No, make your comment, please.
All right. Ms. Reardon, you were elected in 2019, and you have really made some eye-popping decisions. First thing you did when you got elected, you made a public comment saying that I hadn't been here long enough to know what Marty was doing, to get a feel on what he was doing. And then 3 weeks later, you vote to get rid of him. So I did the research and created a timeline. You wanted that 3-cent gas tax. That was your project. So once you voted to get rid of Marty, you owed the other 4. They owed you. They owed you big time. Because in 2019, they repaid you by implementing that gas tax. You have done a lot of questionable things when it comes to, like, you when it comes to things that you voted on, how do you vote for a 3-cent gas tax to get city vehicles, to create a budget of $16 million for vehicles? We had already spent $8.3 million over the last 3 years buying vehicles. And now that same tax you want to take and repay Love's. Why are we repaying Love's anything for doing business in the city of Joliet? We shouldn't be giving them anything. They should be happy to do business here. So why are we at that point? How do you come, and all of this happened within a span of 8-9 months. It's not a rhetorical question, you can answer it. Because initially, the other 4 council members were against it. But when I look at the timeline and the way that things have happened, they needed you. They needed your vote. And in return, they gave you that 3-cent gas tax that we did not need. You want to answer it? Because when you run for that seat again, you make sure you let the public know what you didn't let them know before you got that seat, that you were going to raise taxes. You got right in that seat without mentioning anything about raising taxes. You didn't mention it because you would not have won. You don't think that that's at all shady? To run for a seat, you get elected, you never mention anything about raising taxes, and then as soon as you get there, that's what you do. You want to piss off the public, raise taxes, I guarantee you'll start a fire every time. How do you do that? You didn't mention it when you ran for that seat. But then you get in the seat and you raise taxes. So when you run again, you make sure you bring up everything you voted on that has cost us money.
Is that your comment?
I couldn't get another 4 minutes.
Thank
I'll
you.
have to save Don for another day.
Connor Lonergan?
Again, does anyone have anything new to say? We're not going to read from the same script over and over again.
Well, first up, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remind you, the First Amendment guarantees the citizens the right to say what they want. The government, which you are, cannot dictate that.
Well,
So
I
if
would-
we want to read this word for word
I'll
multiple
remind you,
times,
you should
we
look at the
can.
city ordinances about speaking at the meeting. Educate yourself before you come to start lecturing people. Please follow the ordinance, otherwise you're going to be cut off.
Well, the ordinance, the rule.
The
is
ordinance
unconstitutional.
specifically talks about repetitive comments and the presiding officer being me, being able to limit the comments. So if you're just going to read from the same script, we've heard it several times. If you have something new to say, ma'am, if you can't control yourself, you're going to be asked to leave. If you have something new to say, please use your time and say it, but we don't need to hear from the same script over and over again.
Council members, we are here to make it clear that police reform is not a joke, and that and implore you to finally take this issue seriously. As cities around the country face continuous unrest, we have been peaceful, we have been reasonable, we have been patient, but we will not go away quietly. There have been too many excuses concerning police reform in Joliet, as other cities are passing reforms overnight. As a reminder, here are the items you all have dismissed. Defunding the police. Defunding the police is not equal to abolishing the police. Defunding calls for reallocation of funds to areas that are insufficiently funded and will help the community. Police are burdened with too many tasks that would often be better suited for other trained professionals. By placing so much responsibilities on officers, it spreads them too thin, especially in situations where they are ill-equipped, and leaves room for mistakes which can prove to be fatal. Body cameras. Body cameras serve as protection for both officers and citizens. Cities all over the country have body cams, and a city of this size should certainly have them. An excuse that a city cannot afford them is not valid. This city cannot afford not to have them. City Oversight Committee. This is meant to be separate from the Police and Fire Board. This should be a committee that is not appointed by the mayor, and having such a committee
helps hold officers accountable while building public trust. If a committee like this were in place, perhaps we wouldn't be standing here tonight. Drug testing. Currently, already officers may be drug tested, but there is no structure in place and to take action if they test positive. This would also extend into alcohol testing as well. JPD needs to be proactive in implementing fair disciplinary actions across the board. Anti-racism screening. This has been noted that officers take diversity training. Most jobs do, and people take the course to keep their job. However, this is not anti-racist enough. There are outwardly racist officers within the Joliet Police Department as we speak, so much so that other officers have filed suit. This is an issue that desperately needs to be addressed, especially in today's social climate. 3-strike rule. This is not meant to punish good cops. This is something that needs to be implemented to deter problem behavior and to suss out bad cops. If an officer is continually committing offenses that would warrant suspension, that officer does not need to be on the force, as they have shown that they cannot be trusted to follow the rules. No reasonable person would think that any of these things are detrimental to the community. Every single thing mentioned will benefit our community in a big way. Pass police reform now.
Yeah, we're not going to do the same thing over and over again. If someone has something new to say, step up. If not, we'll move on with the meeting. Thank you.
Man, how you doing?
Good.
How y'all doing? I guess I got a question, and my question is, we have a police officer who, as the citizens would say, did the right thing. You would tell your children to step up when you see somebody do something wrong and say something. But we have an officer that did that. You guys are making mockery of him by sitting him at the front desk at the Joliet Police Department, while also trying to pursue criminal charges against this guy. While Sergeant Doug May sits in his office, and who knows what he does. He just sits in his office. But I'm trying to see how a fire chief's son, right, get accused of sexual misconduct, and he sits at home and collects a check. Can anyone explain why that happens? Why isn't this other sergeant sitting at home collecting his check? This isn't right. And you can make it right, but I guess you would have to walk in some of these people's footsteps, you know, sort of like the victims. It's romance, and I saw you guys stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, and you probably saw some of us sit. It's romanced, and it's the theft and the bloodshed that this America, this land of the free, we've been doing that forever. We've been taking people's lives forever to get what we want. And where I'm going with this, you guys took a man's life. I will not ever stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, for the national anthem, because I know the underlying situation and the root of where the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag, the national anthem, if you do your research and you do your history on where these come from, that's why Christopher Columbus is being like taken down everywhere, right? Like he stole land, but he has a day of his own. He stole shit. Like that's crazy. But we put people in jail for doing that, right? But he gets a day. You get a day off of work. You get to celebrate a man who stole something from us. Joliet Police Department stole this lady's husband. They stole the father to these kids. And if this officer didn't say nothing, we wouldn't even be here today because you guys wouldn't even known about it. It don't take 5 months for somebody to come and talk about an investigation. Are you nuts? Are you serious? I don't know how you guys even sleep at night when we cry at night. We cry at night. And I love the fact that we got these masks over our face because I can't see your real face. I can't see how you really feel, but I know the smirks. Because you guys can fire this officer. It's kind of cute that the city manager is in charge to do all the kind of firing, I guess, and hiring. But I'll say this. I think, and again, I don't know, I don't live in Joliet, but I think the mayor is a fair guy. I think he wants justice for this family. And I'm asking that the mayor step up for this family, for the citizens of Joliet. Body cameras, it should be like carrying a gun. This is a no-brainer. I can go buy a body camera myself and put it on for the amount of money that these officers are getting paid every 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has anything different to add?
Real quick, did we ever get the letter from the state police department saying that they don't do these investigations? Because
I'll speak to you after the meeting, Jerry. Yes, sir.
Cesar Guerrero, you can call me Caesar if that's easier. Joliet resident 60432. Council members, while I have received the literature that has been circulated that I'm sure you've seen already, I'd just like to clarify that I do not maintain an official or substantial relation with Will County Progressives or any other informal grouping. I say that because I'd like to make that clarification, as I'll be referencing a news article published by the Herald News on September 4th entitled Police Reform in Joliet, question. That was easy. The article makes reference to progressives in sort of a collective sense, and while I may be ideologically progressive, again, I'd like to reiterate that I don't maintain a substantial or official connection to any particular group. I'd just like to say that the article reads, these proposals, which again, you've heard already, the proposals were discussed for 3 hours at an August 6th committee meeting attended by about 20 people. No one from the public was at the Public Safety Committee Tuesday when the proposals were described as either issues already being addressed or no longer relevant. So I'd like to ask to the council, do you believe that these issues are already being addressed or are they no longer relevant? Which of the two? It's not a rhetorical question.
It's public comment, so please make your comment.
Okay, continue. The article goes on, progressives contend they were caught unaware that the proposals would be on the Public Safety Committee's agenda. They were unaware. Whether that was the intention is another question. So that is my second question. Was it intentional or not? A simple yes or no will suffice.
No.
No. So on the record, you were saying that that was not intentional. Okay. So my next question is then directed directly for Jan. The article continues, Committee Chairman Jan Coleman later described it as a, quote, a wonderful meeting, end quote. Would you care to expand or elaborate on that, on what made that meeting in particular wonderful or what made it better than any other meeting?
I'll make my statement at the end.
Okay, sure. So if I won't be allowed to respond, then I'd just like to say that if your answer is something along the lines of the meeting went very smoothly, that nobody made public comments that made that particular meeting drag on any longer than it had to, I would just say that this is your job as representatives to hear the people of your city. These are your constituents. Your job literally is to hear them out. I, again, don't maintain any official relation with Will County Progressives or the informal groupings here, but I believe I have given them at least the courtesy to give them my full and undivided attention a courtesy that I believe that some people in this room have not afforded them. And with that, I end my comments.
Thank you.
Marlena Smith.
Hello, my name is Marlena Smith, and I'm a Joliet resident. To give you a little background about me, I'm an AP student at Joliet High School, and I was wondering, can anyone tell me what an rhetorical analysis is? Okay, I give you the answer. A rhetorical analysis is when a speaker gives you, they try to influence you. But in my way, I will be using logos. Can anyone tell me what logos is? Okay, logos is logical appeal. And what we have presented, all of us, what we have presented to today is the topics of defunding the police, body cams, civilian oversight committee, drug testing, anti-racism screening, and the 3-strike rule. We have made it clear that police reform is not a joke. We have been peaceful, we have been reasonable, and we have been patient. But we will not go away quietly. Pass the police reform now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any additional item?
How you doing? I'm Carl Farrell, Joliet resident. The first item is that I like to speak about is the September 1st meeting, which I believe that the public didn't have the proper notification for. Police reform is a very big issue. I'm very confused because this is the 3rd largest city in Illinois. So why don't our officers have body cams? I moved out here in about 1995. I've been out here on and off ever since. And back in those days, you were working on the department then, I believe, at that time. Those were those cowboy days. Those when the police would tell you, I'll take my belt off and fight you. I was a child. I was 15 years old. I got kids that are 15 years old right now. Me thinking of a grown man with a gun on his waist, threatening my son. You know, that's very disturbing. You know, I lived through that. I made it here to be here to say what I'm saying right now to you. And so that's why we need body cameras on some of these cars. They're not from these neighborhoods. All the programs, the programs, the basketball leagues that the police had with the neighborhoods where they got to see these kids grow and know them by name, those are gone. I don't even know if majority of the police even live in Joliet. I don't even know if that's a requirement anymore, you know? But I'm saying it's a detachment between the community and the department. And that needs to be fixed ASAP. There are things that are going on. I was having a conversation the other day, Keith Elementary School, just the things that are in our communities, you know. Keith Elementary School has looked the same for the past 25 years. There's been no upgrades, no nothing. The kids are just not getting computers. You know, I think a reallocation of funds is a very reasonable question. That's a very reasonable thing to ask for. These are things that we are missing. How can things be fair? How can our children grow up with the same kind of education and proper guidance, and they're not getting the same kind of chances and opportunities that they're getting right across Route 59? You know, I'm just asking to level the playing field. I also want to know what's going to happen when more people awaken and realize what's going on. And, you know what I'm saying? That things can change, but things aren't being changed. Because there have been no real uprisings out here. But what happens when people get upset and there are real uprisings? So I suggest that a proactive response is, you know what I'm saying, better than waiting until something happens and trying to respond in. Because people are upset right now. They just gave Breonna Taylor's family, I think it was $12 million, however much it was, they just gave them that amount of money in 6 months. I don't understand how it took 5 months for a video to show. 5 months of denial. And the officers that were involved with that are still getting paid with my money. I'm a taxpayer. I work very hard. I don't work hard to pay people that are dishonest at their job and hide things. That's not the kind of people that I want to pay. So I don't understand why my money and other taxpayers' money is going to that. That's ridiculous. These are reasonable requests that we asking. That's all part of reform. And lastly, I'm also the question that Jerry asked. I'm very, because I want to know about the question that we asked about the Illinois State Police doing internal investigations. When the guy that was here to step down, he tried to show us his cell phone in the middle of a recorded meeting, right? As proof that he got a text saying that the Illinois State Police don't do independent investigations. I mean, how long are you gonna allow people to try to play on the intelligence of the people? We're not all like, you know what I'm saying? Some people are aware of what's going on.
Thank you.
I just wanna know.
Thank you.
Next is mayor and council comments.
Okay, Don? Larry?
No.
Jim?
So, on August 18th, at the city council meeting, I gave a report on the police reform meeting held on August 6th. The meeting lasted about 3.5 hours. This meeting had never taken place before, and it probably never will be taking place again, because normally a committee meeting, you public comments, 4 minutes on agenda items, then the agenda items are discussed, and then it's decided what to do. But for 3.5 hours, council folks sat here and listened to your concerns over and over again for 3.5 hours. And I thought it was a great meeting. And the number one issue that came out of that meeting was body cams. We went over every issue that was on your list. The issues and concerns were duly noted, and I felt that the meeting went very well. At the conclusion of the meeting, I said we would meet again in a month. On September 1st, the Public Safety Committee met to follow up on the previous meeting issues. The agenda for this meeting was posted on social media and the City of Joliet website. It was stated on the agenda, continued discussion on police reform. I was surprised that no one was here at the meeting at August 6th. But if I recall correctly, there was a whole month of August where folks were not coming to the council meeting after coming week after week. And so by not attending those meetings and not attending this meeting, I assumed they were boycotting.
Excuse me, ma'am. Please don't yell from the gallery.
Prior to the meeting, I received no communications in the form of text messages, emails, or phone calls from anyone regarding this meeting. The following day, I was made aware that there was an issue when I was contacted by a reporter. He advised me that people were complaining that they were unaware of the meeting. As was stated in the Joliet Herald News, people admitted to seeing the meeting post but did not read the agenda. The Public Safety Committee meets the first Tuesday of the month. The time and agenda is posted on the City of Joliet website and on social media. Being totally transparent, the meeting was held 1 month later as previously stated, and to repeat, the meeting and agenda was posted. So that is the end of my statement, and that is a truthful statement. And if you have text messages that you sent me or emails, please come up with them right now. I'd like to see them.
Mike? Pat? Terry?
Yeah, I really don't, but I do. You know, I know it's been a lot said tonight, and Mr. Mayor, I don't know, maybe this is proper or not proper. I don't see what the problem is just having another meeting and let everybody know when we come to talk. I think, you know, I came to the meeting basically because the young lady was talking about the Narcan, and as well as to hear some of the issues, and I was surprised too that no one was here. But it could be my fault. I didn't reach out to anybody, but I've never reached out to anybody. But that's neither here nor there. If it's proper, Mr. Mayor, Jan, we had a joint meeting before. We could do that again, or we could have a land use and legislative meeting. I think that's would answer the question that the general public has about the body cams, about the reforms, about all of that. Let's just talk it out, like we said at the original meeting. That's all I have.
Jerry?
Well, I don't want to minimize the seriousness of this meeting, because I do take it very seriously, and I am listening, and I have talked to you beyond that meeting about different things that we are looking at very daily, I would say, and body cams being one of them. But I would like to make a statement that has nothing to do with this, but it's important too. Last Thursday we had an event at the train station, and thanking the Canadian National for a $25,000 grant to the city for trees and plants and other beautification, also along with the American and Bloom Association, who support also the beautification throughout our city. Jim Tiber, who is our arborist, was presented with an award for his dedication to always going above and beyond for the city to beautify with flowers and plantings and trees and various entrances into the city. And I want to say personally, Jim has been so responsive to every call, text I've made during these past two storms. As you know, they wreaked havoc on the city. He returns my texts in the evenings, on the weekends. He always follows through. One night I went to the Slammers game after a meeting, which was pretty late, and he was out there watering flowers. So I just want to congratulate him, because there's a lot of good to be known about too in this city, and congratulations to Jim Tiber for a well-deserved award. So, thank you.
Ready?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you for this opportunity. I want to echo Councilman Morris' comment regarding rescheduling a meeting. I think this is very important, and so we need to have those real conversations. So we'll try to get that information out as soon as it's scheduled, and so everybody can be available and be present for that. Again, Jim Tiber, thanks. He's a really, really hardworking guy for this city, and he deserves that award. So congrats, Jim. The other thing, last comment, during COVID has sort of really wreaked havoc with us physically, mentally, economically. And so the Forest Park Community Center wrote a grant to give some assistance to people who are sort of struggling with their prescription cost. And we will pay up to $75 toward your prescription. So if you want to take advantage of that while the grant money is available, please call us at 815-727-7898. We're located at 1017 Woodruff Road here, right in Joliet, 60432. So if you are in need of, or you know someone in need of some financial assistance with their prescription, please give us a call. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Couple things. Terry, to follow up on your comments. If there was another meeting, I would attend. I was at the first one. I stopped at the second one and saw that there was nobody here. So that'll be up to the committee. Regarding the Citizens Review Board, you probably deserve some credit. You've been talking about this for some time now. Jim, this probably was back maybe 2 city managers ago, but there was supposed to be some legal review given, because there's different types of boards in different cities with different powers. And I think that was going to be presented at some point, and this city council was going to take, or committee would take a look at it and see if a recommendation was going to be made. So if that could be on one of the list of things, and the legal department may have already done this, but I don't think it's ever been presented back to the council. And Terry, I know I've spoken with you and other community leaders about this more than once. The other thing that I would simply add, not about this topic, but we added, well, the Lowe's project we voted on last year, I think it was last year, but some time ago. And then the gas station on Route 6 tonight. And I want to credit the city council. I can tell you, when I was a policeman here, and certainly when I was elected to the city council, one of the complaints I heard repeatedly was about lack of development on the east side of Joliet. And I heard over and over again about how the east side's been left behind, everything new goes to the west side, and that certainly isn't the case today. You can point to a number of projects in the last couple of years. And, you know, Councilwoman Gavin, you talked last meeting about a committee you were on in 2005 that talked about $4 million leaking out of the city from the east side every year. And I'm sure that number hasn't gone down, but it's projects like these which are significant. They're not mega, you know, Walmart, but a truck stop with a convenience store, with 2 restaurants inside of it is also not something small. And the same thing with the Route 6 gas station with a convenience store and a restaurant inside of it. That's money that was being leaked, most of it outside of our city, going to New Lenox or unincorporated Joliet. So I want to thank the council people who took those votes, and then just point out the number of developments, the new development that's happened all over the east side in the last couple of years. And again, with COVID and with the city manager debacle we've had here, we have kind of lost our stride. But I think in the last 3 or 4 months, we're kind of getting it back. Larry, I know your committee is meeting more often, and there's more topical. And I know of a big announcement that was made today that I don't know if I'm at liberty to talk about yet. But yeah, I think there's good things going forward. I want to highlight, because there was a constant criticism about the focus being on development on the west side, not on the east side. And just take a look at all the new things that have happened the last 5 years and the new things that are coming to the east side in the next year or so. So Jim, if you could get a copy of, or not a copy, but some kind of report, and maybe the appropriate committee could take a look at that, and if they're willing to make a recommendation to the council.
Mayor, I'll take a look at what we've done historically and provide everybody with a copy.
Okay, thank you. That's all the comments I have.
Mayor, oh.
Real quick, I just wanted to clarify, I don't want any confusion and then unnecessary controversy. Councilman Morris has suggested at his committee that they can pick up and you guys, and folks can go. Remember, look under legislative and land use committee. That's where he would, as the chairman, place the item, just so you know.
And I just wanted to comment, there's some misunderstanding out there that there was never going to be another meeting, because that was never the case. But since no one was here, we followed through with the agenda and we discussed issues. And what came out of that meeting was looking into the body cams, because that was the number one issue that came out of that 3.5-hour meeting. So just to let you know.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Been motion and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have the email, Jan, I forwarded it to you about 10 times.